This week in history.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
All right, Johnny. So for the viewers at home that are watching on the YouTubers, the next two things have absolutely nothing to do with the Civil War, but we just recorded our Civil War Railroad episode, so please go and watch that if you're interested. But if you are one of the few that do watch her this week in history, this has nothing to do with anything that we're doing, but I'm too lazy to change out of it and whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're explaining your attire basically.
I'm explaining
dressed
my
up in
attire
Civil
in
War
the background
garb.
with all my Civil War stuff and my bayonet and all my equipment and my canteen there, all that stuff. Anyways, the first thing I got for us today, Johnny, is Mount Vesuvius will erupt on August 24th or perhaps 25th or perhaps October 17th through November.
Wait, what?
79 AD. Yeah, these dates are all over the place. 79 AD. This is a little before we're consistent with dates.
I mean, as soon as you said 79 AD, it's like I get it, but the first time I'm like, oh, so it happened overnight or no? Okay, just
we're all over the place.
Sometime during that year.
Traditionally, the traditional date of the eruption is August 24th. Some believe it's August 25th. More recently, we think it was probably between October 17th and November. But if we celebrate this, December 25th as Jesus's birthday, when we know that there's not at all, even according to the Bible, we know that's not at all when his birth. If we celebrate it then, I'm going to go with the tradition. We're going with a Jesus motive here, and we're going to celebrate it on its traditional date.
I'll take it. Somebody prove him wrong that it didn't happen on that date.
Right? In all likelihood, it is the most violent eruption recorded for Mount Vesuvius. It spewed superheated tephra gases to a height of 33 kilometers, or for the Americans in the audience, 21 miles in the air. That was a big-ass explosion.
How thick's our atmosphere?
I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Johnny, you're the scientist.
I guess it's got to be more. Oh, no, that's 30,000 feet. It's not much. I mean, it can't. That's insane. You go ahead and continue. I'm going to figure that out.
That's probably close to, I don't know. It says
21 miles into the...
It said 21 miles up. It was equivalent to, as we discussed, I believe it was last week with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it's equivalent to 100,000 times the energy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
All right, so I did find out. So the atmosphere, the whole atmosphere is about 300 miles.
Oh, okay.
Which is significant, but most of it's within 10 miles. So it's like one of those things where it's concentrated.
You're in the upper atmosphere.
Yep.
Okay, great. It would eject molten rock, pulverized pumice, and hot ash 1.5 million tons per second.
What?
This shit blew.
1.5 million tons
of ash, pumice, and molten rock per second while it was erupting. Jesus. That's a big-ass explosion. I mean, 100,000 times the nuclear bomb at Nagasaki or Hiroshima, whatever you say.
That's insane.
Now, you might be wondering, who gives a shit about an explosion that happened in 79 AD?
I'm guessing all the people around it.
I do, because in 79 AD, Italy, where Mount Vesuvius is, modern day times, it was a part of the Roman Empire. And there were several cities that were around it, including Pompeii, Herculaneum, Aplontis, and Stabia, which you only ever hear about Pompeii.
Yeah.
And these cities
bad happened, and there's some pictures of a skeleton or something from Pompeii or some shit like that.
Well, there are a lot. We'll get there. These cities were completely covered by said explosion, and if you lived there, sorry about you.
You're dead.
You did. Total death tolls remain unknown because we don't really know how many people were in these cities, and obviously nobody's going around in 79 AD.
Yeah, there was a lot less counting back then.
A little bit less counting. We do approximate that between Herculaneum and Pompeii, that there were around 20,000 total between those two cities. And everybody that was in those cities died.
I assume those estimations are based on just size of city and typical population density at the time.
On what census, because the Romans were good on their census, which is the whole Jesus being born on December 20, and we know that didn't happen because the census was conducted between April and August.
Right.
Every so often by Rome, and some of these records do still survive. So these estimates are based on census records of around that time frame.
Which they were doing censuses at this time in order to collect taxes, basically. Like,
yeah, we want our money.
They're like, we want money, so we need to know how many people we need to collect money
Just
from.
like the United States conducts a census to know how much votes each state gets for the Electoral College, Rome conducted a census to know how much money we get from each city.
It's a little scary how many parallels there are between the United States and Rome with what's going on right now.
We do know that since we've been studying Pompeii and Herculaneum, the two major cities, that we have found at those archaeological digs in those two cities, 15,000 bodies that have remained intact from this explosion because they've gotten covered with ash.
Yeah.
So their bodies are intact.
Buried and preserved.
Buried and preserved. And I have two favorite buried and preserved ones. My first one is the poor fucking schmuck who actually survived the initial explosion. And we know that he survived the initial explosion because his skeleton is intact. Now, everybody else that we've dug up, it's not a skeleton. It's a body. It's a full, like, there's no skeleton. It's a body.
Oh shit! Okay,
like
mummification, basically.
Yeah, it's an instant flash mummification. This person, we don't have that. We have a skeleton fossil, but his head is missing because his head is covered with a big old rock. So this guy likely survived the initial explosion and didn't get covered by the ash and soot, but got hit by one of the falling rocks.
By a falling rock out of the sky, Dead Like Me. The movie started kind of like that, except it was a toilet seat.
Yeah. Oh, the movie, the TV show. Oh, that's a great TV. Go home and find a way to actually legally watch it because I don't support pirating. I don't support pirating. Wink.
Yeah, but if it's not easy to find, go ahead and steal it.
Find a way to legally rent Dead Like Me and watch it because it's amazing. I love it. But yes, she does die by a toilet seat. But this particular guy died by falling fucking rock.
Although, I mean, yes, that sucks. It's tragic and everything, but it's not like he had a lot of time to think about what was happening to him. Like, it's just one moment he's walking along, probably a little scared because there's an eruption happening, and then he's dead.
Yeah. And my second favorite guy is the dude that's cranking one out and is preserved cranking one out. Like, this dude likely saw the explosion and was like, well, I got
literally, like, everybody's thing is like, if I could choose any way I go, it would be during sex. This dude made it happen. I mean, it was self-sex,
but yes, this dude. And it's not even that one guy. There are actually they found multiple mummies essentially that look like they were self-pleasuring while this happened.
With all these old pictures and everything, it makes me think like there's a famous one of a couple of skeletons that are like cuddling together, holding hands, or all whatever. But people thought it was. I don't know if it's from this explosion or from some other.
No, it is. There are couples that are embracing when it happens. There are parents that are holding babies.
There was one of the couples that was confirmed to be two males. So it was a homosexual couple that was.
Yes, it was.
Cuddling.
It was.
Okay, so that's the right picture. I'm thinking of the same.
Yes,
event.
you are. Pompeii and the archaeological digs of it have confirmed a lot of things about human culture and how things haven't really changed. There were homosexual couples.
Right.
There was child bond, sheltering. There was love relationship, and that people are embracing each other when this thing happens. There is confirmation that people gurked it.
Yeah.
At 79 AD.
I mean, for crying out loud, the great apes do that. Like, they have homosexual relationships. Nowadays,
there's always those memes and YouTube videos of the monkeys that are like
they'll masturbate, like, and we are nothing more than a more advanced great ape, and so why would it be any different?
And that's the first thing I got for you today. The second thing, I'm not going to go into a lot of details because it might become a video in the near future or distant future or whatever. It isn't interesting, but it's the Battle of Crecy, which happened on August 26, 1346. I've got a lot of old stuff for us today.
Yeah, going way back.
This battle is part of the 100-Year War between France and England.
How long did that last?
100 years, I think.
Oh, it actually did?
I have no idea. I'm going to assume that it was 100 years,
so I'm gonna guess
I really
like
honestly
80.
have no idea.
I'm gonna
I
guess
have,
80.
I do know it was one of the like more bloody conflicts that France and England had with each other.
Yeah.
But again, of course, it's going to be when you're fucking fighting for 100 years, or even 80 or
I
50 or
mean,
whatever.
yeah, it's hard to yeah, it's hard to not have a horribly tragic war without,
That
if it's
many
100
deaths for
years.
100 years. Yeah.
All right, so the Hundred Years' War, 1337 to 1453. Not quite, at more than 100
Actually, over
years.
100 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like 100 and what?
Do the math at home. I'm
Uh,
not doing it.
It's 116 years or so.
I've drank some White Claws. I'm not
It's the
doing it.
100-ish year war.
The
How's
100-ish
that?
year war. In a lot of regards, this specific battle marked the beginning of the end of the era of knights in shining armor and nobility.
Oh, okay. What?
And we'll get there. The English army, led by King Edward III, was marching around northern France, screwing shit up with about 10,000 men.
Okay.
The French and Bohemian forces under King Philip VI would attack them with around 20 to 30,000 men at the city of Crecy. Crecy, Poisson, Crecy.
I think you got it. Yeah, nailed it.
Close enough. One of those was probably close.
No.
The battle would open up actually between English longbowmen and French crossbow mercenaries.
Ah, I like this competition. Okay, tell me more about longbows versus crossbows.
Yeah, but this is one of those weird situations where the older technology is actually better than the modern technology. So crossbows have a higher initial oomph.
Yeah.
So they can punch through the armor a little bit easier, but they have a very slow reload time.
Yeah.
The longbowmen, from what I've seen, can get at least 3 shots in the air before that first shot hits the ground.
Yep.
Which is about 4 or 5 times as much as what the English crossbowmen can get.
Yeah. So there's a very interesting YouTube guy who's talked about the history of archery and longbows and everything else, and his whole thing is like the way that we do archery and bow and arrows now is not how they used to do it.
No.
They used to be able to fire off 3, 4, 5, 6 shots in a couple of seconds because they notched it on the outside and it was a quick draw thing. And he does these videos of him doing acrobatics, nailing targets, and running around like a crazy person, and it looks like a Hollywood movie.
But he's able to pull it off, and these guys are trained. English law at the time was that you had to train X amount of hours. I think it was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This was before England got away with the whole like civilians probably shouldn't own weapons.
Yeah.
It was by law. You had to own a longbow and you had to train with said longbow X amount of hours every Sunday. Like it was by
Right.
law. And these guys, with archaeological evidence, they trained so much with it that a lot of them had hunchbacks because their muscles were over advanced on the right side of their body from
the drawing
and firing. And they were trained on how to shoot rapid fire.
Right. And so that's the general population. The people in the army and the people who are want to be experts on it, they're not training several hours.
They're training
it's
even
every
more.
day.
Yeah, and these average people that could be trained with this, and I'm not saying that you can train somebody how to shoot a longbow in a day and be fine. That's not what it is. These people were mandated by law to train.
Right.
And they trained so much that they were hunchbacks because it was ingrained from them in childhood.
Yep.
And these weren't nobles. These were everybody.
Yeah.
So a peasant,
your average citizen,
from the start, like it was expected that they do this. So when the war happened and these 10,000 English troops are there, a large majority of them were longbowmen that were
already
peasants,
competent,
that are super competent in how to do what they're doing.
Yeah, it's not gathering up an army and trying to train them. It's saying it's activating the National Guard.
Yeah,
basically.
So it is not surprising that these longbowmen were able to oust the French mercenary crossbowmen, because if you're getting 3 shots in the air at one time, these crossbowmen that have to shoot and then literally put the gun, or not the gun, but the crossbow on the ground, hook up a crank system, and then crank it up.
Right. Yeah, because that's the other thing.
Cock the crossbow and then reset a new bow and then fire. It was literally between 4 and 5 times faster for the longbowmen than it was for the crossbowmen.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about the crossbows at the time is it's not a modern day crossbow. where you have a lever, you have something that's assisting you to pull it back. Like modern day crossbows, you could probably get out pretty quick. This
In
was
modern
you
day
had to
crossbows, yeah, in modern day crossbows are not as powerful as medieval crossbows.
right,
I
right,
believe
but they're quicker and more efficient.
yes, they're quicker and more efficient, but they're not as powerful. So I
Right.
believe the medieval crossbows were anywhere between 150-pound pole to up to like 400 or 500-pound pole,
Which is why you needed a
which
crane.
you cannot physically do that yourself.
Right.
Now, the English longbowmen, who are trained from life and would start and work their way up, the minimum war bow, I believe, quote, yell at me in the comments if I'm wrong, was around 120-pound draw pole. So the modern day like compound bows are like 40 to 60.
Yeah,
You're doubling
I
that for a
just got
longbowman.
one for my wife, and like you calibrated between like 30 to 70 pounds, something like that.
Sure.
So average is probably around 45 pounds.
I'm a musket guy. I'm not a crossbowman or longbowman, so I really don't know. Sure. Now, when these these French crossbowmen started to surrender, the English decided French. Damn it! When the French crossbowmen started to retreat, the French decided we'll send in our armored nobility. We'll send our knights in shining armor.
That's right. Because
we'll charge this field and we'll sweep the longbowmen from the field.
Yeah.
The problem is there was a lot of rain prior to this battle, so the field's muddy. So the rapid pace is slower. The English were set slightly higher elevated land, so the French had to go uphill. Yeah. And they also dug, not trenches, like they're not hiding in trenches, but they dug moats that would slow the advance of these armored knights. So they got cut to shreds by the longbowmen. So then the French are like, well, we'll send in the men-at-arms, which are the foot soldiers. We'll send in those armored guys up. They'll sweep. And they do this all damn day and into the night.
So I assume eventually they're like, surely they're out of arrows by now.
Right?
It's in the next round.
The end casualty result, Johnny, is that it's estimated from the English and French report that around 40 to 300 English would die, while the French lost 4,000, including 15,042 nobles. So
wait, hold on. How many did the French lose?
4,000.
4,000.
4,000.
Okay, including
to the English at the high end, 300.
Okay.
That's a very lopsided victory.
A little bit.
And of those 4,000, we know specifically 1,542 nobles died. That's really going to hurt the whole genetic pool of French nobility.
Yikes. Yeah, that's an issue because nobility, I assume, is the same
has to
as
breed
it was
with other
everywhere
nobility.
else. It's all interbred until they're all just crayon eating.
Well, shit. I guess my cousin's my new wife.
And that's This Week in History.